I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture a massive stone hall. It's the middle of the night,
Right.
and the only light is coming from these old rusted iron lanterns swinging way up in the rafters. The air is thick. It smells like straw, warm fur, and that specific kind of dust that's been settling for centuries.
And the room is it's packed.
Absolutely packed. Every animal you can imagine is there, shoulder to shoulder, breathing in the dark, just waiting.
And they aren't just waiting for dinner or for the sun to come up. The stakes are much higher than that. They are waiting to find out who they are.
This is the setting of The Fox in the Room, the source material we are digging into today. And look, I know what you're thinking. A fable about animals in a zoo.
Is this story time?
Exactly. But having read through this a few times now, I think we both agree this is not a bedtime story. It's haunting.
Not at all. It's a disguised philosophy lecture. It's a masterclass in psychology, group dynamics, and specifically something called epistemology.
Epistemology, that's the study of knowledge, right? That's the fancy word for asking, how do we know that what we know is actually true?
That's it, in a nutshell. It asks how we distinguish truth from a really convincing lie, or, from our own wishful thinking. This story creates a closed system, the room, and drops a huge problem into it.
A terrifying question, really.
It is. If the truth walked in and sat down next to you, would you actually recognize it? Or are your pre-existing beliefs effectively a blindfold?
Because in this room, nobody has a name yet. The source material describes a quiet weight filling the hall. It's this vacuum of identity.
Right.
And because they don't know who they are, they've filled that void with myths, specifically the legend of the Great Fox.
That's the central tension. Nature abhors a vacuum. In the absence of hard facts, the animals have built these complex social structures all around a rumor.
Some worship the idea of the fox, some hate it.
Some analyze it, but everyone is obsessed with it because it's the only narrative they have. It's the thing that organizes their reality.
And then the door cracks open, and in walks a fox. But he's definitely not what they expected.
They never are they?
Yeah.
We expect truth to be shiny and loud.
Right. The text describes him as small, travel-worn with dull fur. He just slips in and sits by the wall. He doesn't look like a great fox. He looks like a scruffy little dog that got lost.
And then he breaks the silence.
He looks around and says simply, I already know my name. I'm called Fox.
And that's the catalyst. This is where the story shifts from a narrative into a behavioral experiment. You have a claim of absolute certainty in a room full of speculation.
And the way the other animals react.
It's a perfect taxonomy of how human society handles disruptive truth.
Let's break down these groups because, I'll be honest, I saw myself in a few of them and it wasn't comfortable. The first group is standing near the lantern wall. They're huddled together, shoulders touching.
Right. The text says closeness itself were a kind of safety.
We can call them the dogmatic or the fearful.
That's right. They are driven by a defensive narrative. They have a prophecy they've shared for generations that says a serpent, a deceiver, is going to come and claim to be the fox.
It's a completely self-sealing worldview. When the actual fox shows up and says, I am a fox, they don't see a fox.
They see the fulfillment of their nightmare.
One of them actually steps up to block him and says, that is what only a sick animal would say. And another one adds, or the serpent himself.
This is textbook confirmation bias, but on steroids. Think about their framework. The deceiver will claim to be the fox. Therefore, anyone claiming to be the fox must be the deceiver.
So the evidence that should convince them?
Is the exact evidence they use to reject him.
It's circular logic. It's a mental trap that truth literally cannot penetrate. If you say you aren't the fox, you aren't the fox. If you say you are the fox, you're a liar. There's no way to win.
And it's all driven by fear. Notice how the text says that after he walks away, the group draws closer together and feels reassured. They think the warning saved them.
When in reality, their fear just insulated them from the very answer they were waiting for. They picked safety over truth.
Which is a very human thing to do. Uncertainty is terrifying. A bunker of shared belief feels safe.
Okay, so that brings us to the second group. And these guys are the polar opposite. They aren't huddled in fear at all. The source describes them as having confident, restless energy.
The cynics. Or, the contrarians.
The cool kids in the back of the class.
That's the vibe, yeah. They've flipped the script. They believe the Great Fox story is a tool of oppression designed to keep animals ignorant. One of them actually says, the serpent is the one who tried to give knowledge.
So they think they're the only ones awake to reality.
That's it, that feeling of superior insight, Everyone else is a sheep, but I know how the world really works.
But when the fox approaches them and says, I already know my name, they don't get angry like the first group. They laugh.
Mockery is their defense mechanism. They look at him with theatrical interest, like he's a bug under a glass. They call him ordinary.
That word really stuck out to me. Ordinary. Why is that such an insult to them?
Because to a cynic, the truth has to be complex. It has to be hidden, subversive, a secret. A dusty, travel-worn animal simply stating a fact is, well, it's too boring.
It doesn't feed their ego.
Exactly. If the truth is simple, then they aren't special for knowing it.
The fox actually traps them in their own logic here. I love this part. He asked, then you must already know who the fox is, since you can tell the difference between truth and deception.
It's a devastating question. If you know I'm a fake, you must know what the real one looks like. But of course they don't. They claim to know enough, but all they really know is how to tear things down.
No model for what's true, just for what's fake.
Precisely.
And the text notes that when they start laughing again, it's a beat late. That hesitation, it speaks volumes. It's all a performance.
Deep down, they're insecure. The laughter is a shield. They aren't seeking truth. They are seeking superiority over the sheep. They want to be right more than they want to know.
Which brings us to the third group. And honestly, I think this group is the most dangerous one because they seem the most reasonable. They sound like the people we usually trust.
The intellectuals, the rationalists.
The source puts them right in the center of the hall. They're admired. They don't shout. Everyone listens to them. These are the ones who say, look, these old stories are just inventions.
Beautiful inventions, maybe, but created by animals who didn't understand the world.
It's a closed, materialist worldview. To them, the only things that exist are what can be observed, measured, and, deduced within the room. The idea of some great fox is childish to them.
So when the fox approaches them, and notice the text says it's harder for him to speak here because the air is already settled, they treat him like a confused toddler.
It's that condescension of the expert.
It is. He says, I already know my name. And one of them smiles patiently and says, that is not knowledge. That is belief.
That distinction is huge. They're just redefining his experience to fit their categories. They can't imagine he actually knows, so they label it a subjective belief to just dismiss it.
And they make a prediction. They say the night will prove nothing. At best, it will show he's a good guesser. They have preemptively decided that even if he turns out to be right, it doesn't count.
Why?
Because he didn't use their method to get there. It's the ultimate insulation. They are so convinced of their rational process that they cannot accept empirical evidence standing right in front of them.
The fox says, tonight will tell us, and they're basically like, nope, it'll just tell us you got lucky.
It's the blindness of the expert. They're so good at analyzing the shadows on the wall that they've forgotten there might be something casting them. Their cage is just made of logic, not fear.
So the fox walks away from them too.
Yeah.
He's struck out with all three major power blocks. And this is where we get a really personal moment. A young animal, she's not really part of any group, walks up to him.
And she warns him. She says, you should stop saying that. Animals are starting to avoid you.
This is the social cost of truth, isn't it?
Absolutely. We like to think we value truth above all else, but we don't. We value belonging. She warns him because he's violating the social contract. By claiming to know, he's making everyone else uncomfortable. He's rocking the boat.
And his response is so simple. I am only saying what is true. But the way she looks at him, the text says it's a mix of pity and envy. Why envy?
Well, because there is a heavy burden and uncertainty. Everyone else in that room is waiting, wondering, hoping. The fox is at rest. He knows.
Okay, see.
She pities his social isolation, sure, but she envies his certainty. She's that part of us that wants to believe but is too afraid of looking foolish.
So the fox sits back down. He's alone. His shadow stretches on the floor.
Yeah.
And then the whole atmosphere shifts.
The writing here is beautiful. It's not the hush of anticipation anymore. It's the silence of something they did not fully understand.
The doors open. Enter the human. He's carrying a notebook.
Mm.
And the text describes the pages as soft and worn, like they've been read 1,000 times.
This is the moment of authority. Until now, everything has been peer-to-peer debate. Animals arguing with animals. Now a higher authority enters. The debate is over.
Reality is about to be imposed from the outside. The human walks to the room just pointing. Lion,
Yeah.
bear, wolf. The names settle on the animals like weights. You can feel it.
The moment of truth.
And then he points to the little guy by the wall. The human says, fox. And the text says the word entered the room like something that had always been true.
Such a profound description. Truth isn't something new being added. It's a resonance, a recognition of what was already there.
Now watch the reaction. The group near the door, the fearful ones, they turn to that young animal who warned him. And they say, he was right. He knew.
And look at her reaction. This is key. Does she admit she was wrong? No. Her face changes to the look of someone who has found the new place.
It's instant hindsight bias. She acts like she's always known where to stand. She aligns herself with the new winner immediately. Oh, yes, I was just talking to him. I knew he was onto something.
It's social survival. The hierarchy just shifted. The weird outcast is now the validated prophet. She needs to be on the right side of that history instantly to maintain her status.
So the human leaves. The hall empties. Most animals just drift away. They have their names now, but their worldviews not really changed.
Which is incredibly realistic. People rarely have these massive epiphanies when they're proven wrong. They just integrate the new fact and carry on. The intellectuals probably told themselves, well, statistically, someone had to be a fox.
And the cynics.
The human is just part of the system, too. They protect their egos.
But not everyone leaves. The owl stays, the symbol of wisdom.
But here, I think she represents genuine curiosity. She's the only one who asks the question that actually matters.
She flies down from the rafters and asks, how did you know? And this brings us to the twist, the reveal that changes the entire meaning of the story.
It really does, because up until now, we and the animals have assumed the fox was playing the same game they were. We thought he was deducing or guessing or interpreting the legends better.
But he wasn't. He looks at the light and says, I was raised by humans. I arrived already knowing.
Let that sink in. I arrived already knowing.
That just blows the whole debate out of the water.
It renders every argument in that room meaningless. The dogmatic group thought he was interpreting a prophecy. The cynics thought he was faking it. The intellectuals thought he was guessing. They were all wrong because they assumed his knowledge came from inside the room.
They thought he was looking at the same shadows they were, working with the same data set. But he wasn't. He had been outside.
Exactly. His knowledge wasn't based on IQ or logic or studying some text. It was based on relationship. He had lived with the source of the names. He knew the naming authority personally.
That's the difference the intellectuals couldn't grasp. They called it belief. But to the fox, it was experiential knowledge. He didn't believe he was a fox.
He remembered he was a fox because the human had told him so before he even walked in the door.
It completely reframes the definition of knowledge in the story. You have the bottom-up approach, using clues and logic to figure out truth.
Which is what the room was doing.
Then you have the top-down approach, direct revelation from the source. That's what the fox had.
And that's the limitation of a closed system. If you decide that nothing exists outside the room, outside of what your science or logic can measure right now, you will never understand the animal that walked in from the outside. You'll call him crazy or lucky, but you'll never understand him.
Because his data source is just invisible to your tools.
Right.
The story ends with him walking back out into the night. The world continued in its ordinary way, it says. Wind, water, so grounded.
And the lanterns go out, the show is over, but the implication hangs there. The fox wasn't special because he was smarter or more spiritual. He was special because of his history, his proximity to the truth giver.
It does make you look at the other groups with a little more sympathy, though. I mean, could they really have known?
That's the hard question. The fox told them there is a third alternative. He offered them the truth, but to accept it, they would have had to abandon their safety mechanisms.
The fearful would have to give up their prophecy. The cynics would have to give up their superiority. The intellectuals would have to admit their rationalism had limits.
And none of them were willing to pay that price. It was cheaper to just call him a liar or a guesser. The cost of truth was too high for their social identities.
This story, it's really going to stick with me. Next time I'm in a debate or I see some thread blowing up online, I'm just going to picture that lantern-lit room.
It's a useful mental tool. When you encounter a new idea that disrupts your worldview, ask yourself, which group am I in right now? Am I rejecting this because I'm afraid? Am I mocking it because I want to feel smart?
Or am I just dismissing it because it doesn't fit my established data set?
Exactly.
Or, dare I say it, are we the young animal, warning the truth teller to shut up just because it's making things awkward?
That is often the most common role we play. We preserve the peace rather than pursue the truth. We prefer a comfortable consensus over a disruptive reality.
So what's the big takeaway here? We have these different ways of knowing: fear, cynicism, rationalism, and relationship.
I think the takeaway is humility, radical humility. The most educated animals in the room were the furthest from the truth because they were the most certain of their methods.
And true knowledge might come from a source you aren't expecting. And it might look like something ordinary and travel-worn. It might require you to admit that you don't know everything, that maybe, just maybe, someone else has seen the Notebook,
Or knows the writer.
the fox in the room. Who knew a zoo allegory could hit so hard?
Sometimes the simplest stories hold the heaviest truths.
Well, we're going to leave you to mull that over. But before we go, here is a final thought to chew on. We spend so much of our lives arguing about the shadows on the wall, the news, the theories. In your own life, when you are debating truth with others, are you just arguing over those shadows? Or do you actually know the writer of the Notebook?
And how often do we dismiss someone as just guessing, simply because we don't understand their source of information?
A chilling thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you in the next room.
Okay.